All right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Welcome, everyone, to Bitwarden Brilliance. So on the third Thursday of every month, a member of the integration engineering team presents a demonstration of some technical aspect of the Bitwarden platform. So we're the ones who are testing our product integrations, making sure your enterprise experience is working as expected. We relay technical product feature requests. So it's natural that we're the ones to come up with the cool ways to use the product in various technical settings. And we have an opportunity to share that with our community here. So that's basically what Bitwarden Brilliance is. And today's Bitwarden Brilliance topic is configuring and utilizing Postman to interact with Bitwarden's public API. And today we have a special situation again where we have two integration engineers as your host. Myself, my name is Kat, and Stacy. Say hello, Stacy.
Hi.
Awesome.
Here I am.
Awesome. Yeah. So here is the agenda that we're going to go over. We're just going to run through a quick overview of Bitwarden. I'm going to cover the part talking about Bitwarden's different APIs. I'll talk a little about Bitwarden and Postman, and I'm going to start like from the top. If you already have background about Postman and APIs, you could probably skip this part and just go to Stacy's part. But I'm going to kind of go from the top in the very beginning, just for people who may not be as familiar with everything. And then Stacy will go into the demo and the setup of configuring Postman to use the Bitwarden public API. And we'll kind of hang around. We're in the live chat for questions and answers. So I think that's what we're going to be covering today. Stacy, did you have anything to add?
Yep. No, that's great. I will be demoing Postman from the desktop app, but it's also accessible from a web app, but we can get into that more after Kat gives a little bit more of the overview.
Awesome. All right, so we kind of do this every single time, just kind of go over why Bitwarden, right? So we are, the leading open source password manager that's trusted by businesses and individuals worldwide. We are the enterprise-grade security for storing, sharing, and managing credentials. And we have flexible deployment options. We are cloud-hosted as well as self-hosted. So it's secure. Obviously, we have end-to-end encryption as well as zero-knowledge encryption. So everything that gets decrypted is on your local device clients. So nothing gets unencrypted. Nothing unencrypted gets stored in the servers or anything like that. Easy to use. I think it's pretty intuitive, and there's nothing that's too complicated about it. We're transparent. We are the only fully open source password manager solution. So literally everything about our code base and things like that are all on GitHub. And we do that to say, you don't need to trust us. You can trust, you can go through the code yourself if you want, but you can trust all the millions of eyes that are on our source code, as well as the third-party audits that we hire to check for the security and standards of our product. Synchronized across all platform and apps, we have desktop app, browser extension, web vault, a CLI as well, right? And we have user-facing feature parity across all of them. We have a very shareable model for sharing passwords as well, right? Unlike some of our competitors, we have a many-to-many relationship with our password sharing. So if you update a password in one and it lives in multiple collections, it gets updated in all of them. And that's a really big feature we have that's specifically for enterprise use cases. We're very customer-centric. Obviously, we do a lot to kind of make sure that our customers are getting the best experience, as well as the community, which is what this is an example of. We have weekly demos, and as well as this monthly Brilliance session that our integration team does. And it's available wherever you are. So you're on the go, you're at your workplace with your family, you can do everything securely. So, all right, let's get into APIs and Bitwarden APIs. And you'll notice that I have a plural in APIs, but let me start with the basics. So what's an API, right? Like, it stands for Application Programming Interface. It's a way to interact with our product programmatically. It's different from the CLI, even though there's a lot of similar kind of like end results it can do. Similar actions can be made. The CLI is like a client, just like our web vault is. It's just not got that GUI. It's not got that graphical user interface. But our APIs are a collection of endpoints that you can use these HTTP protocols as a medium of communication to call the web service directly. So I have an example on this slide. This is a screenshot of our swagger.json documentation of a few of the endpoints that you can reach through the Bitwarden public API. So I want to clarify, we actually have two APIs. We have the public API and the vault management API. So I actually have planned to do an upcoming like future Brilliance session on this, so I won't go too much into detail about this. But the basic idea is that the public API does not include any encrypted data. So anything that has anything to do with passwords, like you can get that through the CLI because you have a decrypted vault. But the public API does not contain any encrypted data, right? So if you want to do any things that involve any encrypted data, you will have to go through the vault management API, which requires you to authenticate through the CLI so that it can decrypt that data. All right, so I think, Stacy, did you have anything to add about our public API versus the vault management API, or?
You can use both with Postman, but as Kat, mentioned, hopefully maybe on a future Brilliance, we'll go more into the vault management API.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Okay, so now getting into Postman. So what is Postman, right? It's an API platform for using APIs. It's great for testing out API endpoints while you're building an application, or in our case, while you're interacting or managing some things on Bitwarden. I personally loved using Postman when I first started working with APIs and developing applications. It makes everything so much more like visual, and it lets you organize things into these, what they call collections as well. It allows you to test things if they're getting sent through in the way that you expect. It also organizes and prettifies the JSON and your payload so that it's super clear and easy to read. It also handles authentication, which Stacy will show you how to set up. But yeah, I think Postman is awesome, and I'm going to leave Stacy to show all the cool details about that. But it's basically this intermediary application that it's still you interacting with the API directly, but it creates kind of like a visualized platform to make what you're doing, what you're looking to do, so much easier. So yeah, I don't know, Stacy, like what are your favorite things about Postman? I love how like visual it is, and it even shows you like 200 OK, or it'll show like it didn't go through, it failed, show you the error message and everything. So
yeah, well, I love a GUI.
yes.
So
Yeah.
a lot of, and what we're going to show today, even a lot of changes can be made to Bitwarden, either directly, in the admin console of Bitwarden, or with our Bitwarden CLI. But, this is a very great user experience, easy to use, and without having to, necessarily be logged into Bitwarden, because you can use the organization API credentials. And really, we're just going to barely scratch the surface here of what you can do with Postman. And also, to make it clear, Postman is not an official partner with Bitwarden or anything. They have not asked us to do anything. Really, I have been a fan of Postman for a long time, even before I was with Bitwarden, and have used it to work with APIs in the past. And we have seen, some of our users and in the Bitwarden community forums that other people have an interest in using Postman. So we felt like it was about time to show it off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, forgot to mention that this is not a sponsored post, right? Definitely have always. Yeah, I think initially, I guess what you're saying, like we all love a GUI, right? If you don't use this, you would just have to do it through like a terminal or something, right? So, and
just making your curl commands or.
Right. So this just makes it look so much better. And you also get to, if you see in this screenshot, which I just picked off the internet, it's not one of our screenshots, but there's just so many get calls, and it's all there. You could just click back and, see it instead of scrolling in a terminal or something like that, right? So yeah, great. So yeah, what we'll be showing today is configuring Postman for making use of the Bitwarden public API. And conveniently, our other colleague who has made multiple appearances on Brilliance, Adam, has created a community forum thread that is a step-by-step guide. It's very well documented. He even has like all the screenshots with all the arrows and like how you can install Postman. So I actually used this when I first started setting up with the Bitwarden public API when I first joined and everything. So yeah, like I included the link on this page, but we'll like add it into the show notes or something like that. So yeah, so that's all the intro that I had. I'm going to be handing over the screen to Stacy to show all the cool ways you can make use of the configuration of Postman. So you can utilize Postman to interact with the public API and perform certain actions. We're going to show a very practical example. We're just going to be granting collection access to a member and revoking it. Basically, imagine like if you have someone submitting an IT ticket request to say like, I need access to this specific collection to the IT team. If it's approved, the API can make the change needed with a put/public/member/ID object. And that will just edit it. And later on, you can just change it again for a period of time. So like Stacey was saying, you don't have to go into the admin console to do that. You can do that straight from Postman. So yeah, that is the introduction. Let me just stop the presenting. Did I stop the presenting on mine?
Looks like we're both sharing now, but you can stop yours so that hopefully mine will be the
here we go.
Future one showing. And before I share Postman, I did want to bring attention to our fabulous Bitwarden Help Center. And here we have kind of our main documentation on the Bitwarden public API. And I'm pointing this out because this will direct you to the actual API spec, where you will need to get the Swagger JSON file. So you can get to it either from down here, where it shows the specification link, or even linked at the top here where it has a Swagger JSON file. It'll just bring you to the page. And then if you go all the way down to the bottom, it has the download Swagger JSON file. So I already have that downloaded. Go ahead, Kat.
Sorry, just saying like that if you weren't going to go through Postman, you kind of have to go through all of the stuff on that page you just showed before, right?
I mean, like looking through all of that spec. Yeah. But you'll see when we import this Swagger file in, it's going to have all of that there for us and ready to go.
Yeah, awesome.
All right, so now I'm over at my desktop installed version of Postman, but you can access Postman directly from your browser in the web app. And I believe there's probably a few features that the web app version doesn't have that the desktop does. But I do like the desktop version. And already here, I kind of have this little documentation. That's another thing I like about Postman is you can create documentation inside Postman, either as its own thing or within each endpoint. So you can see here, I took a little bit of the instruction that is also included in the community forum guide that Adam created. That's going to walk us through the initial steps here. And I do technically already have it imported because this one is one that I have already kind of edited for the examples that we're going to be using. But I do want to show you how to actually, import a fresh one in and what that's going to look like. So the first thing that you actually want to do is make sure you are in the workspace that you want. So you could already have an existing workspace that you want to be doing this in, or you could create a new workspace specifically for what you're going to be doing with Bitwarden. So for this one, I already created a workspace called Bitwarden Brilliance. And once I'm in that workspace, which I am, I'm going to click on the import button right here. And then I can literally just get my file, drag and drop, or, you know, go to my file manager. If you had an active Swagger link, you could also use that. We do not have that, I believe, right now for Bitwarden. So this is going to be a snapshot of what the Bitwarden public API is right now. So if there were to be updates, you would need to, you know, import kind of a fresh JSON. So there we go.
Yeah, and
Import in. Yeah, go ahead, Kat.
yeah, just on that, the JSON is basically like all the endpoints and the payloads that it takes, right? And that's you downloaded that from our documentation, and now just dropping it into Postman, it will ingest it.
Yeah, so it's not dynamic. So anytime that we make, you know, actual changes to the API, you would need to import a new, grab a new file.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. So I'm just going to import it here. And now you can see it showed up as a copy because I already had one in here. And now you have everything already laid out for you. You have all of the endpoints. And if I kind of start here at the top, just to show you, it even kind of ports in the documentation of the specs. So pretty much everything you need to interact with the Bitwarden public API is already here for you. And then if we, you know, kind of click in to find an actual like request endpoint, such as create member, you can see switching over to, I picked a bad example here. Let's go into the one that I'll eventually be using over on the one I already have. So if you go into the request body, it already has basically the template for the request for you. So you would just need to, you know, edit this for the request that that you're making. So we really lay it out for you here. And now I will switch out of my copy and go into the one that that I already set up. The next step of what you would want to do is to create your environment. So with Postman, you can set up different environments so that you can kind of set variables per those environments. There is a way to set global variables so that if you wanted to, you know, you have something that you're going to reuse in every different collections that you have. But for this, I created a specific Brilliance environment so that I could set my client ID and client secret as variables that I can use in the auth, which I'll show in a second, without having to, you know, reveal, and can keep things kind of secure and hidden there. So you can get this client ID and client secret if we go over back to my little guide. And there's another thing to highlight is that I like about Postman is it creates tabs. So you can kind of switch back and forth between, you know, different views that you have. So going down here, you're going to get your client ID and client secret, which is technically your organization API key. And you will get this, I believe only owners technically have access to this. And you will get it from settings, organization info within the admin console, and you will click view API key. It will make you enter in your master password to gain access to that. And then you can securely copy those into Postman. So then going back over to my Bitwarden public API, if I go to this, you know, the highest level of the collection structure here, and I go to this tab for authorization. Now I actually already filled mine out, but when you import the JSON file, it's already going to have a lot of this set to what you need to be. So you don't really need to change anything as far as what is configured. Like it's already going to have the right auth type selected. It's already always going to have the header prefix, and all those are going to be set to what they should be. So all you really need to do here is set the variables for your client ID and client secret, which I already did here. And then this will reference my environment as long as you make sure that you have that environment set. So you set your environment in this upper right-hand corner, and you can see I already have Brilliance selected. So I know that the client ID and client secret variables it's grabbing are from there. So for instance, if I was managing multiple organizations, maybe I have a different environment for those two different organizations. So I'm pulling in the appropriate client ID and client secret. So once you have those in, everything else should be set. The only thing to consider is this access token URL. Right now, this is set for the Bitwarden US cloud servers. If you are using the EU servers, you would just need to change this to bitwarden.eu. And if you are self-hosted, you would just change this first part to be your self-hosted URL. So that is another great thing is you can interact with the Bitwarden public API if you are self-hosting, as long as you have access to the internet and have set the appropriate variables and such that you need to be able to interact with it. So then we're going to go down and we're going to click Get New Access Token. If everything's set up correctly, it's going to give us that nice green check mark, show us a token. We're going to use the token, and then we are ready to go and authenticated to use to start making requests.
This is just awesome. It kind of just like wraps everything you need into one thing. I remember when I was first like developing apps, you just had like import from everything, right? And this just kind of is like, as long as you're in that environment that you were just showing earlier, like it just tells you all the things that you need, right? Basically.
Yep. Love that it's all in one place, and then you can come back to it. Whereas, if you're using the CLI or something to make requests, maybe you have to write the script or have a script that you're going for, or you got to figure out the syntax for that call to make a change. Mm-hmm. And, you can do it. And if you're very well versed with that kind of stuff, that might be easiest for you. I know with the way my brain works, this is a lot easier also for me to come back to if I haven't, interacted with the API in a while without having to like really refresh my memory as to, what I need to do. And so I like it. But now we're going to do a sample request here. And this is, just to be clear, we're showing a really basic example. We're going to show how to update a member to give them access to a collection that they previously didn't have access to. So we're showing this example because in real life, this could very well be a use case in your organization where, like I think Kat had mentioned earlier, perhaps you've received an internal ticket from an employee and they are requesting access to a specific item or collection. And maybe you, in your role in the company, is you are the one that kind of makes these requests happen, but you're not actually an owner of the organization regularly. So they don't necessarily want you to be able to log into Bitwarden and into the admin console, but you have been granted those API credentials to be able to set up Postman. So that is why, you are the lucky one that gets to honor those requests and use Postman to do it. So today we're going to assume some things in making this request, and we're going to assume that you already have some information needed to make these requests. And the information you would already need to have is the member's ID, their UUID, and also the ID of the collection that we're going to be granting them access to. So you can get that information through making other calls, but we're not going to show that today. In a real life scenario, maybe you already have those IDs mapped somewhere. Postman has a lot of other functionality, so there's also ways that you can use scripting and such. But we're just going to scratch the surface here and do something very basic and assume that you already have that information. We will, though, need to make a preliminary request before actually updating the member. And that is we need to get information about the member. So we're going to do a get request to retrieve a member because we need to know what collections that member already has access to. So actually, just to backtrack slightly, a thing I want to do is, as you can see, I already did this here, is just for my ease of use, I'm going to set the member ID and collection ID as variables. So if I go back up to my very parent collection structure here and go to variables, here you can also set the base URL, by the way. This will become preset when you import the Swagger file, but you will want to update this if you are using the EU server or you are self-hosting. So you can see here that I actually already set these variables for member ID and collection ID. And in general, I feel like this is a best practice anyway, because then you're making minimal changes to the request body, and instead things that you might, okay, well, I need to change this now to a different member, or you could use slightly different variables for different ones. So I'm just going to use these as variables. So I have already gotten my member ID. I've already got the collection ID of the collection that I'm going to be giving them access to. So hop back over to retrieve member. And for this, all I need to do is I inserted this variable for the member ID. I'm going to hit send, and it's going to give me the response that has a bunch of information here. But the things I care about is the collections and the type. So type is just what type of user it is. So number 2 denotes that it is a regular user, not an admin, not an owner, not a custom role. And then I need the collections, because if I don't include their existing collections in the update request that I'm going to make, then it will remove their access from those collections. So I want to make sure to include those. So now I'm going to switch over to our put request for update a member. And you can see here, magical, I already put it. So if I hadn't done this here, you would have seen kind of what I showed earlier, where you have a template that showed all the information. You don't need to supply all of the information back. But again, we do need the collections they already have access to and the type of user. So as you can probably tell, it's a bit implied. Say you wanted to just change the type of access a user has to a collection they already have access to. You could also do this here. So maybe they used to manage a collection. Now you still want them to have access but not manage. You could change that existing collection. So here we've got our 2, existing ones. And then here I have our new collection. So I'm using the variable for my collection ID. And then I've chose to, set that I want this to be read only. I want it to hide passwords, and I do not want this user to be able to manage the collection. I'm not showing the Bitwarden view right now, but we could, go into Bitwarden and kind of look at that user right now, see what collections they have access to in Bitwarden, so that afterwards we can check and see that they have access. But we should know reliably after we click the send button if we get a success. So, all right, I have the member ID also filled here with that variable. I put that if before I put this, it'll just have like :ID. So you need to make sure to insert this here. Also, whenever you're making any changes to Postman, there is this little save in the upper right. Right now it's grayed out because there's no changes to save, but every once in a while I'll click send and wait, that's not giving me the right information, and it's because I forgot to save my work. So just a reminder to do that. All right.
That has gotten me so many times.
Yes.
You have
so
to
we're going to click send. Yeah. All right. And we've got a 200 OK. And just to check my work, I'm seeing that that collection has been added. And you can see that is the collection ID that I inserted with a variable. So there we go. We now added that collection. So if I were to, go into Bitwarden into the admin console, I should see that added. That user should now see that they have access. And, similarly, if, maybe this is a situation where you're just temporarily giving that user access because they're doing a project, you could just come in here, remove this. Click save and send again, and we have now revoked access to that collection. So there's our kind of simple example here. As we've said, but I said just before, there is so much more that you can do. You can also use the Bitwarden public API to resend organization invites to members. So we can see that as a common instance. But really, there's so much that you can do with Postman. There are a lot of features and capabilities. You can write and manage scripts within Postman. You can create request workflows. You can run bulk requests with their collection runner functionality. So, welcome you all to kind of explore the capabilities. And if you are already using Postman with the Bitwarden public API, or after this brilliant session it inspires you to, just let us know. Like, post in the Bitwarden community forums. We'd love to know how you're using Postman with the Bitwarden public API, or if you have any questions about how to use it, we would love to hear from you. You can also feel free to drop any questions in the comments, or if you're already using it, how you're using it.
Yeah, I love this. It just makes it so like well laid out, and you can see if the request sent through or not. It's just so convenient from Postman. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, I was just thinking if there was anything else that we wanted to touch on or anything like that. I think that's a really good example. And yeah, another I've seen in, some support requests, like they might have set up a script like you're saying, where the invites were being resent, right? So if you're an admin in Bitwarden, you would know that an invite lasts for 7 days, then it expires. So it can like loop through the invited members, but they haven't accepted their invitation, and just resend those invites with the API, right? So that's really cool. Yeah, that's the one I've seen. But yeah, like Stacy said, we'd love to see if you guys have any other cool, creative ways that you've used the public API to do things. And yeah, I just love how, Stacy, it was awesome how you like walk through everything from the very beginning, like just dropping all it in, and it just you've played around with it so much that you even know like, oh, it can create this like wiki for it and everything. So I absolutely love that. And I'm sure it's so easy to follow, so everyone can now go set up their own Postman with Bitwarden public API.
Yeah, there's these things called Postman flows. I've never played with them, but just to say, Postman has all this functionality. So let us know if you've played around with anything else. But yeah, this was really, really fun to show everybody, and maybe we'll have a future one where we dive into something more complicated and or show how to use the Vault Management API.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wonder if Adam's already played with Postman flows. I feel like that's a very likely thing. He's probably got like 10 scripts running in the workflows.
Wouldn't be surprised.
Right, exactly. But yeah, I think that is all that we had to share. I will just pull up our Q&A. So if you have any questions, like Stacey said, drop them in the chat, or you've used Postman in your own way or anything like that. We just love to hear about that. And yeah, let us know if this helped you also get set up with Postman. So awesome. All right.
Yeah, thanks everyone for letting us share our enthusiasm for Bitwarden and Postman with you.
Absolutely right. And yeah, thanks for joining and supporting Bitwarden in our Brilliance sessions. We will see everyone again the next Thursday that we have this next month.
Yeah, subscribe and invite your Postman Bitwarden nerd friends.
Techie friends, right? Yeah.
Your techie friends. I'm a nerd, so that's why I say that. All right.
Definitely. As am I. So all right, we'll see everyone next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.